I was born in a Catholic family in the northern part of France, in Brittany, and I think I lived in a family which was in some way, a little church, but in the sense that my parents and the environment of the family was very much involved, not so much in the church, but people of faith who wanted to witness their faith and try to witness their faith in their daily life. My father was a lawyer. My mother was very much involved in the Catholic action, and they created with my brothers and sisters, we are 6 brothers and sisters, kind of Catholic education, but in a very open and wide sense of the term. So, the faith was communicated through witness. And step by step, the desire to become a priest grew up. So when I was at the age of, really having to choose, having thoughts, going around, I was also involved in Catholic action, in the Scout, in many areas of the church. And I decided, to enter the seminary, and then the seminary helped me to choose my vocation. Yeah.
And since then, you've served all over the world.
Yes, well, I wanted to become a priest in order to be a witness of Jesus, in my home diocese. That's the reason why I decided to go to the seminary of the Diocese of Rennes, in the west, in Brittany. But eventually, at the end of the seminary, my bishop asked me directed me somewhere else. So it took time for me to accept that, but eventually, I had to go to further study. I had a very strong experience for 4 years in a parish in the suburbs of Paris, in the diocese of Nanterre, in Colombes. And then eventually, when I was about 27, I went to Rome. We had here, I had 4 years of studies. We have a kind of diplomatic school, for the Holy See. And at the age of 31, I was sent for the first time, in New Zealand. That was my first posting. And since then, I've been around in 9 countries, serving the Holy Father in different circumstances. It has been a very beautiful life. It's interesting you ask me that question, because really the kind of mission we are given, working in a nunciature and now for the last 27 years as nuncio in 4 countries. Each country is so different, but we have the privilege to be integrated very quickly into a particular culture, a particular church, and you are never a foreigner. So I've learned, to be part of it. Of course you have to make a special effort to learn the language, to learn the culture, but I think all countries have left a great deal of nostalgia for me. They have been beautiful. Of course, I spent, before arriving to the United States, I spent 9 years in Mexico. Mexico is a beautiful country. It's the longest time I spent in the country. But now, I've been 7 years in the States, and I love it also.
Yes, I'm sure every place comes a little bit a part of home.
Exactly. And the world becomes very small. And, you think about networking with people, and now today with the telephone, with all the instruments, we are always in touch with people. So I've too many people to be in touch with. Well, nobody expects to become a cardinal. This is not part of a plan of career. So, I was just, we have 6 hours difference between Rome and Washington, so I was happily asleep. That was a Sunday morning, and the phone call, and a journalist, an American journalist from living in Rome, called me. We were good friends, and he told me, "I just heard that your name has been announced by the Holy Father from the windows. You have a cardinal." That was quite, and that's it. And then after that, I've not been quiet for the last 1 month and a half. Calling. Connections with people. It has been a beautiful time, but quite interesting, by the way. You have many witnesses, that's also what the life of a priest is all about. I think when we speak about tensions, I think it's very important never to generalize. I think we live in a society which is under tension all the time. We call it polarized society. Even politically, it's not just the United States, by the way. I think it's all over the world. The difficulty that people have to dialogue, the difficulty that the people have to resolve concrete problems, which should be, the ideal. So when people are unable really to tackle issues, there is a kind of tensions, and with the danger of ideologizing, issues. So you transform your life in battles of idea. So you fight for it. I think we need tensions in the society. This is normal. We don't always agree, and I think the discussion is important. But at the end of it, we should not stop there. And so the danger, even for the church, because the church is living in the society necessarily, and the Catholics are members of the society. So but on the other hand, I think there is a responsibility for us to go further than that and to be able precisely to dialogue in order to reach, agreements, and also to be able to live with tensions. This is what Pope Francis tells us all the time. Tensions is not bad, on the conditions that you are not totally enclosed in your tensions. You still try to look at the person and not just the idea that the person is carrying on. And because at the end of it, we have to build communities, and even all of us, even the politicians, should not remain with their tensions, their ideas, their parties, but they should resolve problems. And we have so many problems to resolve today, so that let's take the problem of peace, how to reach peace in a world of war. So we have, as Christians, a responsibility at all levels, to re-establish, a kind of society which is able to dialogue and to go further. The point is that people have to understand why the Holy Father wants the church to be a synodal church. A synodal church is not a church which will be, in permanent revolution. It's not the problem. The synodal church should be the real church, the church of people who work together, who dialogue with one another, who actually listen to one another. Because the method of dialogue is precisely synodality, listen to one another. But there is also a further dimension, which the Pope reminds us all the time, is that we are church, we are believers, and we believe in God, and we believe in the Holy Spirit. So we have also to together, and that's what the church is all about, to be a church in prayer, praying to the Holy Spirit, so that in spite of our division, in spite of our difficulties, in spite of our tensions, we are able, to find ways and means, and to offer to the world, these new avenues in order to be able to build a new society. I remember even John Paul II used to speak the civilization of love. Pope Francis calls it the culture of dialogue, the culture of encounter. All these key words, which are basically part of the vocabulary of Pope Francis, are very important, but we have to implement them and to put them into the reality. May I say, it's the same issue that all over the world, but maybe for the just, evangelizing in a new context. I think we have to, the U.S. church is a church of migrants. It's a very various church. But also a church where the culture is changing very fast, and there is a kind of the transmission of faith, especially from one generation to the other, is more and more difficult. The young people don't receive from the older people, from their parents, their teachers, their politicians, and so on. The faith through the transmission of the culture. So they have to find all other ways and means, and they are living in a new world, the world of the medias and so forth. So we as a church, at all levels, we have to find ways and means to communicate the good news, which is not easy. So for that, we really need to create new kind of relationship, to enter into the new networking of the society today. We don't have all solutions. This is the reason why, through the synodal process, the Pope wants us to consider, to try everything which is possible, and to put, the bishops next month will be together for 1 month, and they will share the new avenues, and we said, this is working, this is not working, let's try that. And at the end of it, we will draw some conclusions in order to continue, hoping that the church will become a better evangelizing church. But don't expect from the Synod, to have a kind of new fancy solutions, because on the other hand, many other people have the kind of agenda, and they will proclaim this agenda. Okay, it's good to have a certain agenda on the conditions that it is proposed always in the spirit of dialogue and listening to the Spirit. I don't think that they are the same. I think they are the same. Don't make an opposition between. I know the U.S. bishop very well. I think, and by the way, when I was appointed a cardinal, I received so many letters on them. From them, and they are beautiful ones. It shows that they are in communion with the Pope. I know them. That in the United States you have 450 bishops. It's amazing. Of course, many of them, some of them are already retired, but we have nearly 200 dioceses and many auxiliaries. So it's a big group of people, and they are good people. Their main concern, I know them, their main concern is evangelizing their people. It's not always easy, they are confronted with some big problems. So don't characterize, the bishops of America as if they were in opposition with the Pope, Some may not agree, and why not, And again, the discussion is good, but on the condition it does not become tensions which separates us. The discussion has a purpose to be able to build up something together, but the Pope needs the bishops, and the bishops needs the Pope. Otherwise, that would not be the church. Togetherness. Thank you. I think, may I say, and of course I am very grateful for the Holy Father, to the Holy Father to have appointed me a cardinal. For me, it was such a big surprise, but I want, to take this opportunity to help him, as because he asked me to continue to be the nuncio in the United States, to be an instrument of communion, and I know that this is what he wants, but I know that this is what the bishops want, and we all the faithful all over the world, but especially the Americans, we need really to be behind our bishops, but also behind the Pope.